The story of Titanic begins with the conception of the ship itself. In the early 1900s, there was a fierce competition among shipping companies to build the largest and most luxurious vessels. The White Star Line was determined to outdo their rivals, and so they commissioned the construction of the Titanic, which was to be the largest ship ever built at the time. Construction began in 1909, and it took 3 years to complete. The ship was over 880 feet long and weighed over 46,000 tons. It was designed to carry over 2,200 passengers and crew members. The chief engineer of the Titanic, Thomas Andrews, was known for his expertise and skill in shipbuilding. He had overseen the construction of the Titanic and was intimately familiar with every aspect of the ship's design and construction. The Titanic was claimed to be unsinkable, which was largely based upon the fact that the ship had been designed with a double bottom and a series of watertight compartments, which were intended to keep the ship afloat in the event of a collision or another accident. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, on its maiden voyage to New York City. Families bid farewell to their loved ones, as many of them were sailing to America to start a new life. Others were businessmen or merely travelers set to enjoy their voyage. There was great excitement in the air for the passengers on board, who thought they were set upon a once-in-a-lifetime journey. Never did they know it would turn out to be their last journey. Among the passengers was an amateur artist, Jack, who won his ticket on the Titanic in a lottery. He was, however, supposed to be in the third class. The first class was reserved for some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the world. Among them was a socialite and a beautiful young woman, Rose Bouquetier. She was traveling with her wealthy fiancé, Cal Hockley, and her mother. The person in command of the Titanic was Captain Edward Smith, widely regarded as one of the most experienced and respected captains in the White Star Line. He had served on numerous ships during his long career and had a reputation for being a strict but a fair leader. Titanic cruised through the ocean as per normal procedure, and everything was going to plan. Passengers were enjoying the pinnacle of luxury travel that the Titanic offered them. In first class, people had access to a variety of amenities, including a swimming pool, squash court, and a luxurious lounge area. The ship had a grand dining room that could seat over 500 people and was staffed by an army of waiters and chefs. In the evenings, the ship came alive with music and dancing. There were several different music venues on board, including a grand staircase where the ship's orchestra played, and passengers would gather to socialize and dance. However, there was someone who wasn't happy. Rose never wished to be married to Cal, but was being forced to do so by her mother. She tried to take her own life by jumping in the ocean, but Jack managed to prevent her from doing so. Consequently, they began to develop a bond. Despite their different social backgrounds, Jack and Rose were drawn to each other from the moment they met. The two formed up a friendship that quickly developed into a deep and passionate love for each other. As the ship made its way across the Atlantic, tensions built between Cal and Rose. Cal realized the buildup of a romantic relationship between Jack and her fiancé. Consumed by jealousy and spite, he accused Jack of theft and had him locked up in one of the rooms inside the ship. Third-class traveling passenger Jack didn't have much of a case against a wealthy businessman. Amidst all this drama, there were numerous warnings given to the crew of potential icebergs they could encounter in their way. Captain Smith altered their course slightly, but was determined to create a speed record. He went to sleep, leaving the command in the hand of First Officer William Murdoch. Historians believe that Captain Smith was aiming to beat the voyage time of the Olympic, the Titanic's older sibling in the White Star Fleet. It was the night of April 14th, 1912. Titanic cruised at 20 knots through the Atlantic, which was almost top speed. The temperature dropped significantly and the air was filled with a dense mist. It was extremely cold but clear, making it very hard to spot the icebergs due to the stationary waves in the ocean. At around 11:40 p.m., Frederick Fleet, one of the lookouts, spotted an iceberg directly ahead. He pulled down the emergency bells and immediately alerted the bridge. First Officer William Murdoch ordered the engines to be stopped and reversed. There was panic in the engine room with people shouting orders left and right. The crew tried to turn the ship sharply to the left in an attempt to avoid colliding with the iceberg. The Titanic's engines were slowed down and the ship began to turn. However, it soon became clear that the maneuver was too little, too late. The iceberg loomed large in front of the ship, and the crew braced for impact. The iceberg struck the Titanic on the starboard side, tearing a huge gash in the hull. The impact was so powerful that the ship shuddered and the sound echoed across the ocean. The crew woke up the captain and they quickly assessed the damage. Chief Engineer Thomas Andrews also made his way to the bridge examining the situation. The ship was taking on water at an alarming rate as the rooms in the lower decks started to fill. They both realized that the Titanic was doomed, and there was nothing that could be done to save it. Despite the severity of the situation, Captain Smith remained calm and collected, giving orders and trying to coordinate the evacuation of the ship. As the ship began to tilt to one side, chaos and panic ensued. Passengers and crew members struggled to get to the lifeboats, and there were reports of men dressed as women in order to sneak onto the lifeboats. As the situation grew more desperate, Captain Smith made the decision to remain on board the sinking ship. He knew that there were not enough lifeboats for everyone, and that many of his passengers and crew would not survive. In a final act of selflessness and bravery, he chose to go down with his ship, telling his crew, "Be British boys, be brave." Engineer Andrews also chose to stay behind as he could not leave behind his masterpiece, the Titanic, to sink alone. The band played on as the ship went down, and many passengers remained in the grand ballroom until the last possible moment. Meanwhile, Rose managed to free Jack, and they both rushed outside. However, as they approached the deck, they came to know there were no lifeboats left. The ship was practically submerged inside the water as they both got tossed into the ocean along with hundreds of other passengers. As the ship sank, Jack and Rose hung on to each other, trying to stay alive in the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. Jack found a floating door, and he persuaded Rose to climb onto it, but there was not enough room for both of them. Jack sacrificed himself, telling Rose that he would never let go as he slowly slipped beneath the waves. People watched in horror as the unsinkable mighty Titanic sank right before their eyes. The sinking of the Titanic was one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. Over 500 people lost their lives, including many of the wealthiest and most influential people in the world. The tragedy sent shockwaves around the globe, and it led to significant changes in the way that ships were built and operated. The legacy of Titanic continues to be felt today, as the story serves a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris and the fragility of human life.